Joining me now is Moshe Lavi. He is the brother-in-law of Omri Miran, who has been held in Gaza in the Strip there since Hamas's October 7th attack. So thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. Sorry that it is under these circumstances, and always my thoughts are with you and your family, as they have been since October 7th. What is your initial reaction to the news that the bodies of these 6 hostages have been recovered by the Israeli military from a tunnel in southern Gaza?
Thank you for having me today. The past day has been a very difficult day for all families of hostages who have been grappling with the original horrific news of 6 bodies being discovered in a tunnel, worrying that they'll receive the phone call stating that it is their loved ones who was murdered by Hamas. Our family did not receive that phone call, but 6 others did, and we will mourn with them. They were brutally murdered by Hamas. We're so angry at the international community for allowing it, at the traditional media for emboldening Hamas, and of our own government has not done everything it can to bring them home through a viable deal. As Minister of Defense Gallant said today, time is of the essence, and the Israeli government needs to take a bold decision of agreeing to the deal. Even if Hamas will reject it, we need to show that we are sanctifying life over other objectives.
Yeah, time is of the essence is something we are hearing from many of the hostage families. Back in April, Hamas did release video that showed your brother-in-law alive. I'm wondering what, if anything, you have heard since then about his well-being.
We haven't heard anything. Hamas, in violation of international law, does not provide any information about the hostages, does not allow the International Red Cross to visit them. And so we don't know anything about Omri. Ever since we saw him in that video, he looked very frail, weak, lost a lot of weight, and definitely spoke the words of his tormentors, the Hamas terrorists who were holding him captive. We're hoping he's still alive. But as we know, Hersh, Colin Goldberg, was also filmed in April, and he was executed by Hamas. And we hope that the similar fate will not be met by other hostages, including Omri. We need him home. We need him home with my nieces, Ronnie and Alma. We need him home with his father, his siblings, and we need him home with my sister, Lishai.
I want to talk a little bit more about that anger and frustration you're talking about, because one of Israel's biggest labor unions has already announced a general strike for tomorrow. And we have seen protests, as we just saw in Britt Clennett's live position there in Tel Aviv today, with demonstrations demonstrators talking about Benjamin Netanyahu's failure to reach a deal that would see the release of these hostages. And we know 3 of those whose bodies were just recovered were reportedly slated to be among the first released in that version of the deal that was being negotiated back in July. I'm wondering what you think about the anger in Israel and how it is, as we're showing some live pictures of the streets there in Tel Aviv, how it is being directed at Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yeah, we're very angry. I just returned from a rally here in New York City with other families of hostages and many other New Yorkers who come and support us every week. There is a lot of frustration with the decision-making, with the lack of transparency, with the feelings that the government is saying one thing and then does something else. I think what we want is a clear answer from our Prime Minister, from other members of the cabinet. Are you committed to fulfill the primary objective of bringing home the hostages as promised to us on the first week of the war, or not? We will leave with any answer they give us, but they need to provide that answer. It doesn't seem like we are approaching a deal. It seems like we're negotiating for the sake of negotiating. And the same can be said about Hamas, or even worse, sacrificing their own people in such a maniacal way in order to prolong this war, and are hoping for a much larger regional conflict.
President,
I hope that consensus will find fair, and that we'll be able to find a resolution to this before it will be too late for all the hostages who are held captive and to so many other non-combatants who are suffering from this ongoing conflict.
President Biden, as we mentioned, has spoken to the family of Hersh Goldberg Poland and has said that he's devastated and outraged, obviously, by the death here. He also said that Hamas leaders will pay for these crimes and will be keeping and be working around the clock to deal to secure the release of the remaining hostages. That was a statement from our president today. I'm wondering what you want to see and what you need from the U.S. government now.
I've met elected officials here in the US and members of the administration in the past 11 months now. We've been outlining from the first weeks of the war, you need to be pushing Qatar, and they didn't push them, and now it's too late to do it appropriately. They're a non-NATO ally. They have the US has a military base there, and yet they renewed the contract. It was unacceptable. They're not pushing other NATO allies such as Turkey. They're not strong enough against Iran. And I think the rhetoric, the way they air their grievances with the Israeli government has been counterproductive. Diplomacy needs to be done behind closed doors. So I see failures from both the US administration, the Israeli government, and of course the entire international community have been emboldening Hamas over the past 11 months. But it's not too late to save the hostages. It's not too late to find a resolution to this. This is not going to be, sadly, the last war in the Middle East. I'm a realistic person. But in the short term, what we can do is to save the hostages and find a mechanism that will prevent this horrific attack of October 7th from happening ever again, and preparing for the threat that is looming in the north of Israel.
Moshe Lavi, thank you so much for taking the time, and we hope for the safe return of Omri as soon as possible.